I might be going to Argentina next month in March, and then in India, and then to India in May, straight after the London Wild Bird Watch, which was a live show at Barnes. And that's for a project which is for Beeb, and that's to film killer whales. I filmed killer whales years ago in Argentina for a series called Blue Planet. Yeah. Coming up on the beach and grabbing sea lions. So I filmed that, which was an amazing experience, and I've been asked if I can go back and do it for a live show, which will be on BBC One in May, and then they've asked if I will go to another place where I've worked, Bandhavgarh, which is in India, which is a tiger reserve, to film some of the tigers that I've met. I don't know the tigers there really well. I was really lucky. I was there recently, November, December. And all the characters have changed. There was this big old beautiful male there called B2, which is a rubbish name. But anyway, he was known as B2. And he just died the day after I arrived. The day before I arrived, he died. And that was like a classic Jungle Book. Thank you. Do I look like I need to sit? I keep parking my bottom on the braking table. Shall I do my Valdunicum? I need a different jumper. Didn't you whistle?
Andrew's funny.
So all these characters in Bandhavgarh, the tigers that is, have changed. And it's his son, B2's son, who's called the Bamera male, who has taken over. And I saw him when I was there last, and he is such a brilliant character, because he's got a cut through his nose, which is not very pretty, but it's opened his nose out, and he's like such a hard man. He's just got, he's massive. You know, tigers are big. He's a big, dufty, fat male. He beat his dad up to get him out of the position. So, and then there's a female who's called Kankati, which means cut ear, who beat up and killed another tigress. I mean, they're just awesome beasts. Just awesome. And I've been reading. Have anyone read the Corbett books? Jim Corbett? Okay, well, anyone who has, I mean, actually, it's not at all PC, because he used to go around blotting everything, shooting absolutely everything. And then he turned conservationist, because he realised there weren't so many tigers around to shoot anymore. And he thought, oh, somebody's gone wrong. But he used to shoot all the man-eaters. And it's really sobering. You know, in East Africa, I spent a lot of my time in Kenya. I was born in Kenya. And I spent a lot of time around lions, around leopards and cheetahs, and maybe I'm a bit blasé, but to be honest with you, I'm not concerned by them. Something about tigers just got a different button. They've just got a different button. They're like, leopards have got the same character a little bit. Anyone watch leopards in the wild here? Well, lucky man. If you look at the three big cats in East Africa, lions look at you like this. Cheetahs look at you like this. And leopards look at you like this. They're the only one of the three that just kind of clocks you, and you think, ooh, that could be prey. They've just got this head. And tigers are a bit like that. So they're the size of a lion, bigger, some of them, but they've got the brain, the thinking, the stalking, working it out brain of a leopard. And as a result, every year there's about 100 deaths in India, roughly. No one really keeps a close record of tigers killing and eating people. Can you imagine if that happened in the UK? How long would tigers have survived? Now, I think it's, you know, we're all so quick to knock other nations who, tigers, well, the Indian government's awful. This is an animal that kills and eats people, and it does it every single year. And they have been working and continue to work really hard to try and find solutions. They're sad solutions, and there's a couple of. There was only one question so far, wasn't there? Sorry. Stream of consciousness. There's a couple of young male tigers that last year, in fact, it would have been brilliant. This is in Bandhavgarh, if they hadn't done what they did, because it would have made one of the territories so exciting to be in, because it would have been 5 tigers in one patch. But sadly, these 2 young lads, about 2.5 years old, knocked over and ate one of the guards. And we could say that glibly, like, oh, well, that's all right. But what do you do about that? Do you shoot them? No. Who's going to tolerate shooting a tiger nowadays? So the Indian government, the Parks Department, captures them and takes them off, and they are in prison. They're in a zoo, effectively. Is that right? I honestly don't know. But I don't know how we, would manage it. You know, if Buick Swans ate people, would there be 174 out there now? I know where I would be, or in here. So the thought of working alongside tigers again is really exciting, because you always work in very exposed open-top vehicles. You know, there's no tops on these things. Don't get me wrong, they don't come into cars and eat people. That's not what happens. So you can go to India and watch tigers. Don't be scared of it. But there's a lovely frisson, there's a lovely element, and there's an edge to working with them. And they are just so beautiful. They are breathtakingly lovely. And I don't know if we've been kind of sold this because of the tiger stripe being such an icon of beauty. But there's no doubt about it. You can see 100 tigers in captivity, and you can say, yeah, they're kind of cute. And then you see your first tiger in the wild, and it takes your breath away. There's this environment, this hot, fizzing, heat haze environment, with the sounds of peacocks calling in the morning, and there in the grass in front of you is the tiger burning bright. I mean, it's just beautiful. So I might be doing that. Which is lovely. Yes.
So, are you afraid of tigers?
Am I afraid of tigers? No.
What are you afraid of?
Some people. Occasionally human beings give me the scariest thing ever happened to me. Anyone ever heard this story? We live. Anyway, I'll tell you anyway, if you haven't. This is not a joke. The scariest thing ever happened to me was in Bristol, city centre, on a Saturday night. Yeah! So yeah, the Bristol crew. And it was when, okay, well, you know Bristol, so you know where the Hippodrome, Colston Hall is, Hippodrome, and it looks out onto the green, which isn't the green anymore, it's now cement with big kind of sails. Yeah, exactly, with water. Anyway, that was a big green. And years ago I was making a film about herring gulls. And I wanted, in Bristol there's quite a big population of herring gulls nesting in the region, I wanted to film herring gulls feeding at night, which is kind of curious, because they have learned a rhythm to come out and feed on everybody's rubbish and scraps on a Saturday night, early Sunday morning, really. And I, in my infinite youthful wisdom, put a hide up right in the middle of the green on Saturday night, and sat in it, hoping that people were going to throw their burger remains and chips and whatnot around on the middle of Bristol city centre, and the gulls would come down and feed, and I'd film it. And it was very obvious at about, I don't know, midnight, when all the clubs were starting to turn out, that was possibly a bad decision. Because you got everybody piling out of this, and so, you know, you keep your head down, but no one knows because you're in a box. And at one point, there's this group of about 6 or 10 lads, I can't remember the exact number because it was white fear, who came, I'm going to have to paraphrase because quite a lot of young tender ears in there. And there's these 6 or 10 lads, and they're walking to, well, walking is an interesting description, they sort of like this. And it's proper Bristolian, and one said to the other, James.
James.
Yes. I noticed in front of us that strange structure. I didn't believe seeing that last year. No, I don't remember seeing it either. No. James, what do you think would happen if we applied a certain amount of force with our feet into the aforementioned structure? At which point I'm just thinking, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. That's it. I'm just squashed. And as they got to within about a metre, and we're getting ready for the run and the punch, I just said from inside the box, bear in mind there's a big lens thing like this, and I just said, "You're being filmed and everything you do may be used in evidence." Thing to say at the time. And it was just, it must have been the shock factor. Things were, I'd say, should we leave it till next week? And it didn't end there because, you know, I thought, and it got to 2 in the morning, and it was midsummer, 2 in the morning, and the last people who didn't get home were in gutters. And do you know, no one left any scraps. No one. So the herring gulls are going round and around and around, and everyone had eaten every chip. And you know, from an environmental point of view, it was good. But, from my point of view, it was a complete disaster. And I thought, I'm no way coming back and trying to do this again. No way. I've got to find a solution. I know. And I got out of the hide, and I went across to there's a little alleyway, and it used to, I think there still is, a burger joint right next to the theatre there, or a kebab place, and they've got these big old green wheelie bin things, flip-top thingy, and I thought, I know, That would be what they didn't sell for the course of the day, and I'll get a bag of that and I'll use that to attract the gulls. But there wasn't much in there, so I now am leaning into this bin with a sticky old carrier bag, manky carrier bag, putting handfuls of gunk in. And it's pretty much my legs are up in the
Yeah,
sort of like,
he's going all in.
yeah. There's a torch goes. Good evening, sir. And I hadn't been drinking, and I just sort of peeled myself out and said, "Oh, officer, probably not going to believe this. I'm feeding the birds." Of course you are, sir. I walked off, probably going, "Ooh, don't touch the loony." So I got this bag of gunk and I spread it about and I got back into the hide, and I didn't want to use it all at once. I wanted a chance to get mid shots and close-ups and blood. So I had this carrier bag. I didn't want it in the hide because it didn't smell very good. So I kind of tied it up, put it on the outside of the hide, got in and I'm filming, and it's starting to work. There was a hint of light in the sky, but it still looked like night and the lights were still on. Gulls coming in, feeding. And at that point, a chap who's obviously down on his luck, living on the street, had exactly the same plan as the gulls. Which was to pick up all the stuff. And it's fresh food. I mean, the waste that we normally have, not on that Saturday night, but normally every bin, you look in it, it's fresh. People have gone, don't carpenter, chips, bang. So it's a really good diet. And he's going through the bin, he's going, nothing there, nothing there. And then he spots my hide, and this bag. And it's like it was the most normal thing on earth to suddenly find a hide in the middle of the green with a bag. And he just came straight over to it and bent down to pick it up. Now, my social conscience kicked in because it could have killed him. It's probably salmonella plus. And I just said from inside the hide, "I'm really sorry, but that's mine." And at this point, he went, "Oh, sorry." Now that must also happen to him a lot. So what am I afraid of? Do you have another question? Yes, sir, at the back.
What is it you would like to film that you haven't already filmed?
Ooh, Angelina Jolie. Sorry?
Can I join you?
Yes. Just one-to-one, I'm sorry. What would I like to film? Do you know, I'm going to start this by saying I love being able to photograph, to film and to share what I see and to write and to do recordings. I love all of that and I love sharing things. But selfishly, the biggest kick I get out of my passion, which is the natural world, is just watching and listening. So I'll start by saying I would really love to not film quite a lot of things and just see them, spend time doing it and not have the camera. The camera, much as it's a fabulous tool for sharing, is a barrier too. And it's a barrier for me. And all of the best experiences I've ever had in the natural world have been without a camera. That's not because they might necessarily be the best moments in natural history, but they're the most personal ones. Watch your head, there's a hot cup of tea straight over the top of it. I'm serious. There's a little gag going on at the back. That's you. Nicely done. Hot oil comes in. Is it that bad a question? So, I would love to spend time, it varies. I'd love to spend time on my own doorstep. You know, having a spot where, as I mentioned, I'm lucky enough to have in the garden kingfisher, dipper, green, great spotted woodpecker, a host of different passerines, otters on the river, foxes, badger. I would love to just spend loads of time learning that patch to the point where I know where every clover leaf sits. And in the great British tradition, actually, the Gilbert White style of natural historian who just loved knowing a little bit of land, but knowing it so intimately and so well. It's like a love affair. It's a real passion of the place, and I would love to do that. I would love to spend time working with, he says, in terms of filming, wolverines. I've never spent enough time. I mean, I've never seen a wild wolverine. And that's a tragedy because I've been in lots of places where they exist, lots of places where you can bye. lots of places where they should be, and they're just so scared of people. The biggest burden we all have, if we have an interest and a passion for the natural world, is the body we were born into, i.e. a human being, because we carry with us this legacy, this massive fat burden of fear as a rule, a miasma of terror, which is a legacy handed down through hundreds of years of us being top predator. So whilst it's got us to where we are, probably the most successful mammal ever to walk on the face of the earth, if you don't include mice. It's interesting, that. We like to think we're all big and tough. I bet mice are here after us. Anyway, the fact that we carry this burden of fear. So when you go to places like to South Georgia or Antarctica or the Galapagos, where creatures are either too dumb or haven't learnt that we are terrifying, you suddenly are so liberated. Now, historically, we've abused that to the point of extinction of so many different creatures. And dodo is a classic, great big iconic example of that. But we've done it all over the world, all the time. We walk in, something comes up to us and says, "Oh, hello, what are you?" We go, bang, and eat it. Or boil it down for its fat, or, I don't know, pull its feathers out, something. I am hugely optimistic. I think we are, as a species, entering a new era. And it's an era of awareness. People say, "Oh, it's too late." It's never too late. This isn't the question you asked, but it's never too late for this planet until a massive meteor hits it. Quite frankly, one of the silliest questions to ask is, how are we going to save the planet? We're not. We don't have to. The planet's just fine. And even if we are responsible for the next great extinction, which we might be, and if we go with it, which we may, life will be there. There'll be this bubbling cauldron of life, and in the next 100,000, 100 million years, it'll proliferate and there'll be something else happens until such time as the big rock comes in, goes, and we're no longer in the solar system. So once you've grabbed hold of that, and that you realise that we aren't really that important at all, then it's really important to make it better for us. And by that, I mean make sure that we can live harmoniously with all other living things, and to give it space, and to make sure that we benefit, because it's a very selfish act ultimately, to be able to look outside and say, "Oh, look at that flock of swans, and wow, listen to those geese, and ooh, listen to the song of a robin." It's for us. The robin's actually shouting at his neighbour, going, "Get lost!" Sorry. Once you grab hold of that, it gives you a real sense of optimism. It's either up to us to make a difference and we benefit, or if we don't, yes, there'll be a big mess for a while and life will carry on anyway. Either way, life's okay. It's up to us to make it work for us. That wasn't at all your question. What else do I want to film and see? Wolverines. I've never seen a wild polar bear. I've been asked many times to film them. I was asked very sweetly by the crew who did, by the team who did Frozen Planet, to do quite a lot of polar bears. Just wasn't the right time in my life. I've got a little girl, and I've been away a lot. I've got 3 bigger kids. Eldest is 25. Had him when I was 2. And I was away a lot when they were growing up, and I don't want to be away a lot when Savannah was coming up. So it's so attractive. You get these dangly carrots, and when you're 20-something and someone says, "Do you want to go to the Antarctic?" Yeah. I'm lucky, and I've been to a lot of places, I've seen a lot of stuff, and I just want to make sure I'm around. And little fingers, 5-year-old fingers snap off at -20. Go outside, you can prove it today. I want to see humans in this country appreciating what we've already got. That's what I want to see. I want to see people looking around and realising that we live in a truly special, tiny island nation. Compared to a lot of Europe. Some of the mature trees. My wife's family all live and come from the continent. And they come to Somerset and they go, "Wow, where are all these big trees from?" Big, old, 400, 500-year-old trees that we take for granted on a daily basis. We just go, "Yeah, that's a big old tree in the field." That's special. That's special on a national and international level. Most people don't even look sideways and care. And I want to keep shouting about how special those things are. And I'd love to see humans generally getting on harmoniously with other living things, giving it space. Thank you. Question. Madam.
You visited many islands. Which one has had the biggest impact on you, and why?
Out of all the islands
What's
I visited,
special? Yeah.
which has had the biggest impact?
And why?
Do you mean in British Isles or across the
no,
world?
the whole world.
Oh, wow. Do you know, it's a funny thing. I have done and will continue to be commissioned, commissioned to go to islands, remote uninhabited islands, and I'm beginning to get the hint. I'm being dumped on a little remote island. No, because I love it. Oh, so many. I'll tell you some stories. Talon Island in the Sea of Irkutsk. Talon Island is a crumb, it's a sugar loaf. It's about the size of Steepholm. Do you know what Steepholm Island out in the Bristol Channel? It's about 50 acres-ish, I think. And it's not dissimilar structure. Precipitous cliffs, vegetation on the top. Trapped in sea ice for 5 months of the year, 4 months of the year, because of the climate there. Similar line of latitude to us, but just wrapped up in the Sea of Irkutsk, in the sort of the armpit of Japan and that sort of area. Surrounded by sea ice. I went there for again, and I got there. Well, first of all, we got there. We were supposed to go in a boat. It was still frozen, so there was no boat going to get there. So we commissioned a helicopter. Now, bear in mind, this is Magadan in the Far East, the location of the Gulag. You know, a pretty run-down bit of Russia. And when we arrived at the airfield, it was terrifying. You talk about scared. This airfield, you know, car junkyards where there's kind of bits of a Mini there and bits of a. It was like that with helicopters. It had tails and rotor blades and bits of helicopter and old fuel tanks all over all over the place. And then we were steered towards a helicopter that was kind of joined up, like old cars that someone's made in their shed. It was lots of different colours. Had a yellow tail and a red nose and a blue door, and I'm thinking, that's not original, is it? Massive things, can't remember what they're called. Any experts here? MIG M something, you know, where the back end falls open to put lots of cargo in the back. So that's how we were going to get out to Talon Island. And I had a lot of gear, about a ton of equipment. And I said to the pilot, is this going to be okay? And he said, oh yeah, no problem. No problem. And opened the back. And I looked in, and there was about 1 square metre left, because it was already packed to the ceiling with supplies by research scientists who were going to go and live on the island studying birds. And I thought, no way can you do this. Anyway, somehow we squeezed all the kit. I was sitting on a stack of boxes. There's no safety belt or anything, just a stack of boxes, and all the kit was around our ears. And I thought, well, how can a helicopter take off with this weight? It's not possible. He said, no problem, ground effect. And he literally took off by speeding down the runway, and the rotor becomes a wing at that speed, and took off. And at that point I thought, how are we going to land? Because there's no runway on Talon Island. Hats off. I mean, at this point I'm now looking through the gaps in this bolted together aircraft. I can see clear air through the floor. Complete hats off to the pilots. They were brilliant. They were ex-military. They'd thrown these things around all their lives. He could fly it like a dream, and landed in this remote sugar loaf in the middle of the frozen sea. Dumped us there, and scarpered. There's a beautiful moment when that happens. I was with 2 colleagues, work colleagues, and the researchers, Russian researchers, Sasha, Luba, his wife, and I can't remember the other 2 names. So 4 people down there, and they were in porter cabin huts that had been dumped down. We were supposed to be in the porter cabin huts, and I didn't really want to, so we camped. That was foolish because it was minus 12, minus something. But we camped on top of the island. And there's this magical moment when all the noise of arrival in something like a helicopter or even a ship leaves you, and you're surrounded by the peace of the real thing, knowing that you really are the only person for many, or people for many, many miles around. it's a spectacular sense of isolation and privilege, actually. The reason I was there was to film flocks of birds called crested orchards, dinky little almost puffins. And I say almost puffins because they're the same family, but someone forgot to put the beak on. So they've got dinky, true to name, they've got this funky little hairdo that sticks up the top. Anyway, they came in what's called smokes, a bit like starling flocks, 1 million birds, 1 million little puffins over the sea ice in the evening to roost on the island. So there's nothing, it's quiet, and then over the sea ice, which is pink and suffused with this sort of rose-tinted light with the low sun, comes this great smoke of birds that then comes in around the island and clamours around your ears as they start to fly in. At which point, ravens, peregrine falcons, and most spectacularly stellar seagulls all come in to try and grab them. Wow. Awesome. Truly spectacularly awesome. And I was there, I don't know, I could keep on going, but I was there for over a month. During that period, the sea ice broke, the thaw came, all these beautiful Arctic species of dinky willow and flower started to bloom all around. I filmed stellar seagulls catching kittiwakes on cliffs that looked like they were collapsing from, I don't know if you've seen footage, or maybe you work in a quarry where someone blows up a cliff face that goes and falls, or an ice, a glacier calves. It was like that, but with seabirds, because the whole cliff face was completely plastered with kittiwakes. And as the stellar seagulls came in along the top of the cliff face, they'd come on ambush, they'd fly really close, and they'd come around. The whole face would lift away as kittiwakes just left. The stellar seagull, which is the biggest eagle, biggest true eagle in the world, really nimble, and grab one out of the sky and scoff it. So that's what I was filming.
I did like that.
That was nice. Where else? Shetland I love. I adore Shetland. It lives very well on the world stage as far as I'm concerned. A place that has a taste of the Arctic, but it's got otters. You know, if you can put the Arctic and otters in the same place, that's fantastic. And killer whales knocking around the shore, and people who really know how to party. Not that I ever knew. Really lovely walk. There's a terrific sense of confidence there in the local community. There's some, I'm not going to name any particular places, but every now and again you encounter a place where there's a sense of almost a guarded hostility. Some islands where people say, well, what are you doing here? Suspicion about your presence, and so it takes a little while to get in to be friendly. You know, you've got this the old well, I'm 10th generation and I'm still a newcomer. You don't get that feeling in Shetland at all. You get the feeling of, hey, look, it's lovely here, come on in. And I just love that. A real sense of warmth from the people. And if you do that and you've got puffins a metre away and killer whales going down below, then it's a nice place to be. Crab Island. Actually, that wasn't the favourite place, but Crab Island is this. How long am I allowed to talk for? How am I supposed to talk for? When did we start?
3 o'clock.
I've got this place, Crab Island, which is off Cape York in the north of Australia. So called because it's the shape of a crab, if you squint from about 100 miles away. I think it was named by Cook, who was doing a cruise of the island. He was naming islands. He obviously ran out of ideas completely. Because as you go around the northern peninsula, you go past, I don't know, Epiphany Island and Wonderful Island, and then you get to Monday Island, Tuesday Island, Wednesday Island, Thursday Island, Friday Island, Crab Island, another island. It's just because it's such archipelago of stuff, like, oh, whatever, just put it down. What day is it? Monday, right? Anyway, Crab Island, I went there to film, or to try and film, saltwater crocodiles, these monster, great dinosaur crocodiles, catching and killing sea turtles, which apparently had been happening off the shores of Crab Island. And so I was dumped there again, unceremoniously, with 2 colleagues, and left to try and film it by day or night, and so had all the kit. Now people sometimes ask, is there anything you've ever done and not achieved it? This was one of them. Because the crocodiles did not want to eat a turtle. I spent so many hours. I got chased by a couple of crocs. They really wanted to eat people quite a lot. And it's deeply unnerving to walk on a beach, big, beautiful, long, sandy beach. Sounds halcyonic, doesn't it? Sounds like a real idyll. It wasn't, because on this big beach at night, when I was working a lot in total darkness, you've got 22-foot crocodiles that weigh 1.5 tons sitting in the dark. And I couldn't use visible light because that would scare everything, so I'm working with infrared and every now and again you'd hear the sand going. They're running up the beach. The beach to try and change his diet. And I knew I wasn't going to film the sequence when on one night, I've been waiting, I can't tell you how long, say 3 weeks, and going through another total darkness night, and all the turtles were coming up to lay eggs. They were all pulling themselves up. It was brilliant. And there were 2 big crocs on the beach within 20, 30 feet of big, fat fellas, females probably. And this turtle came right up in front of a crocodile. So I thought, this is it. It's probably not as spectacular because he's not moving, but, and the turtle's front flipper went bump onto the crocodile's nose, and it just went. At which point I got the giggles. So instead I filmed a lot of, what was interesting is at night when the turtles were hatching, which is when they largely do, most of these scenes you ever see of turtles coming out by day, it's a complete lie. I don't know why they keep doing it. Complete nonsense. Turtles, I mean there are exceptions. Maybe every sequence you've ever seen was an exception. I doubt it. I think what people do is they put bucket loads of turtle babies out on the beach and film things going on, which is wrong, in my opinion. Anyway, the real thing happens at night, under the cover of darkness. That's why they come out at night, because it's very dangerous to do it by day. However, it's very dangerous by night. And it was amazing, the variety of birds, this was in Blue Planet, that came in complete darkness to scoff them. Storks, loads of night herons, great masses of night herons came in. And pelicans, it was extraordinary to see great big pelicans going and scooping up turtles, and you could see the little wiggly turtle things in there. Oh no! Sorry. They all got away.
I remember saying that, I didn't like that.
Yeah, that was an interesting island. Steepholm's pretty good. I think I've got an official role for Steepholm. I might even be president. It is good. And if you've got a chance to go there, it's worth it. You get the sense of real island isolation when you go onto Steepholm. You get dumped by the boat, and then you've just got the island to walk around, peregrines nest on it. There's these crazy plants, Alexanders, big elephants all over the place. There's a peony on there, and there used to be muntjac hedgehogs and tortoises. I don't know if there still are. And slowworms, loads of slowworms with blue spots on them. It's great, and big gull colony. So that was fun. I've been on loads of islands. Where do you draw the line on an island though? Everything's surrounded by sea in the end. So. Russian subcontinent, that's a good one. Another question.
You mentioned you were born in Kenya, and I saw a piece in Somerset Life recently that said that you've just become an ambassador for Somerset, which is where I work, and obviously Bristol as well. So, but which do you think of as home? Where's home for you, and is it important?
Did everyone hear that? Yeah. I didn't think it was important until quite recently. I've always felt that home was wherever I was, and so when I've been in Kenya feels really familiar, and I love it. But I've got to say, now more than ever, Somerset feels like home. I've lived in Somerset one way or another for a long time. All of my kids have been raised in that county, either on the Somerset levels where I used to live or now near Free. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, this sense of familiarity with the detail of a place. And that doesn't really matter where that is. The more you invest the more I invest my time and care in a place, the more it gives you back, I think. And I think that's what home is ultimately. Does it really matter? I think one of the curious one, isn't it? One of the questions that was thrown at me, and I think it's a good one, sorry to be morbid, is where when you pop your clogs, do you want your bits to be, your ashes? Where would you want to be sprinkled? And I've always answered that with two things. I'd like probably half of it to be kept fresh, thrown out and fed to the vultures in the Masai Mara. Probably not going to get away with that. It's not very good for the congregation, is it? You know, there's And then the other bit, however, gets dealt with probably in Somerset, stuck in the ground. And then some other bits just generally taken up to altitude and put into a satellite, because this planet has a look down for the rest of eternity. I don't know. Does home, do you think home matters? Yeah? Is that a general yes?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it a sense of calm? Is it a sense of well-being that it brings, opening the door and feeling well? It is, isn't it?
Feeling safe.
Yeah. Talking of feeling safe, I've got a pet theory. Why do most of us, sleep upstairs?
That's where we're bed.
Why is your bed upstairs? Why did they put their bed upstairs? Over the animals. Keep going back. Keep going back to the prime. Yeah, true. Out of the way of
Mine's in a house. That's where it's
yes, but historically, this sense of, and it is a sense of well-being that you get by going up the stairs and feeling as though you're away from the ground. I'm sure there's a primate instinct in us that feels better, because I don't know about you, but there's so many hotels you go into now and they're on the ground floor. I'm not scared of it, but it feels kind of weird when you look out of the window and the ground's right there from the bedroom. And I like being, I'm sure there's this little seed, sorry, that was a complete tangent, but I'm sure there's this little seed of instinct in us that wants to be sleeping at level. It's our primate self that built.
Grounding.
There you go. The further away the better. Yeah, penthouse. You're aspiring to the. Another question, please. Adam.
Nocturnal animals.
Yes.
Can you explain how they see in the dark when it's pitch black?
Can I explain how nocturnal animals see? Depends on the animal.
Fox, for example.
Okay. Right, foxes, anything with a tapetum, which is the shiny bit that you get when you shine a torch at the cat and you see big fat green eyes coming back at you, it's a reflective layer at the back of the, sorry about this. It's a reflective layer back at the eye. It's a tapetum. And the tapetum, what it does is it really processes light twice. So light comes piling in, little photons, particles, triggering cells at the back of the eye, rods and cones. Tapetum is this reflective layer that has another go at it. So anything that doesn't get processed the first time bounces back and hits another bunch of cells. So it's in our technology terms, it's an image intensifier. It's using the energy that's there, the light energy, to the very best. And how can we be sure what animals see? We can't. But we can judge by their reaction to visual triggers that something like a fox, I don't know the exact figure, but it'd be at least 5 times better than us. At least 5 times better. And we're not bad. If you look at, on a moonlit night, you can see everything. So imagine what these guys are seeing. However, total darkness, nothing can see. Nothing. Because darkness is darkness. With light waves. Loads of creatures can see, in inverted commas, in other ways. And one of the things that just thrills me to the core is the thought of how a bat sees the world. What colours, if any, are in this sound picture? Is soft green or red? Is hard colour? Isn't it? Can you imagine flying, and they do, through a rainstorm, and finding a moth? The detail of this picture is just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And they're doing it all, they're going picking this picture up. And then there are others like pit vipers that do it with heat. And they've got pits all along their lips, and they're going, and they've got infrared, and the closest we can get to that as a mental image is thermal imaging, which we can do with cameras now, and they're really funky. Thermal image cameras are such fun because you can be in total, complete darkness and get the best. I was doing some stuff for a series called, what was it called? Big Cat Week, which was a live thing. And we had the most contemporary thermal imaging camera. And I could tune it up and get it to the point where I could see very clearly the spots on cheetahs at night. There's no light. There's no light coming off. This is just heat difference. So you can see the heat difference from a spot on a cheetah to the rest of its coat. Astonishing. So there's every reason to believe that a rattlesnake or another pit viper can just do this and see the world around it with heat temperature. How do we know how birds are seeing the world when they're migrating? Are they picking up the electromagnetic waves of the Earth's shroud of, there's a whole map of electromagnetic topography around the planet. Are they seeing this? They can certainly find their way back and they haven't been told how. I mean, how's a cookie that gets abandoned by its mum once it's an egg, find its way to Africa, find its way back again, and then nest in the same species that it was raised in? Well, I can get the last bit because it grows up thinking that's mum. But the first bit, boom. Swifts are the same. I mean, they boggle the brain. Here's a little critter that, it's all around us. I love, isn't that lovely? That for me is summer, I have to say. Blackbird song is spring. Best song in the world, by quite a margin. But then swifts, when they first come in, that sound is just the sound of summer. Here's a little critter that gets abandoned by its mum and dad. First time it ever takes to the wing. It's never practiced. It doesn't do anything like buzzards and all the rest of it, having a go and messing it up. It just goes pop out of the nest and then it's not going to land for probably 3 years. They're just... This is what's so thrilling about being in this planet and having the facility, albeit very meagre facility on my part, to try and pick apart some of the stories and to understand the glorious fabric of life around. Did that answer your question about the eyeballs? A bit. Colour is another interesting thing. I think it's likely that lots of creatures see colour in a very different way. We're tuned particularly to red skies, almost certainly because it made sense for berry picking. Blokes are usually worse at it than women, because we don't pick berries. Historically. But that's more or less probably the case. Other creatures don't need to see much colour. The cat probably doesn't see much colour until you get to within 2 metres of it. That's how their eyes are built, so you can get colour up to a point and they go, it's a bit reddish. Everything else is sort of a muzzy form of movement. I'd love to know. And one day, maybe, we'll have this little SD card we plug into the ear roll of a fox and we can download and have a look at it, but not yet. And isn't it lovely that there's still so much to learn?
But you would want to unravel all the mysteries of life.
Oh, I would.
Because there'd be no mystery left. But it's just incredible.
But we never will, because there'll always be 100 more questions for everyone you answer.
Yeah.
But I'm so hungry to discover the answers. Absolutely. I don't want no stone unturned. Absolutely. Let's keep on, in a benign fashion, let's keep on discovering. Let's find truth is a big fat word, what the detail of the world about us holds. Because every time you turn that stone, the truth is so much more spectacular than anything you could imagine. One day we will maybe know how a bat sees the world. And I'm sure it'll be more psychedelic than anything you could imagine. It was like, wow, maybe a bat. Do we have time? Yes. Sir.
Speaking of the truth, in your experience, how much bending of the truth is there in wildlife filming?
The polar bears.
Brilliant.
Bending of the truth in wildlife. Okay, this is semantics. There's the truth, and then there's being factually correct. The truth, if we want to be about, every single detail you see is exactly how it is. You'd never watch another wildlife film in your life. Because, for example, you'd be looking at my crocodiles for 3 weeks, not doing anything. In fact, try watching a bitten for 5 hours, which I did yesterday. As a television programme. Here's a bitten. Try it for 5 hours. That's just 5 hours. What you get is the bittern coming down the reeds and going, catching a vole. You go, that was nice. That's some bloke's life for 10 days. So which is the truth? Is it the 10 days of absolutely nothing until it happens? Or is it the moment, the compressed moment? That's one way of looking at it. Polar bears giving birth in a zoo. I didn't film it. Would I have? Yeah, probably. Do I think it's right to have included it? Yeah. Because I think it was an extraordinary insight into those cute little critters. Was the narrative justified? I think so, because it told a bloody good story. Was it intentionally hidden? Absolutely not. did anyone want, when they were watching that film, to have a great big notice coming up and saying, this scene was shot in a zoo, this scene was shot in a zoo. I don't want that. Was it going to hurt anyone? No. Was it a deceit? Absolutely not. I think that there are, however, examples, and I'm not going to point any fingers at anyone, where it's wrong. I don't particularly like the style of filmmaking that shows humanity to be dominant. Wrestling crocodiles, grabbing a snake, aren't I the big fat tough guy? Wow, and all this stuff about machismo and how wonderfully tough we are and how we are the beast that rules all else. It's entertaining, I get it. It's 100% entertaining, and it's circus, which has compelled humanity for hundreds of years. It's circus, it's whipping the bear, it's getting everything to jump to our tune. I don't like it. And I don't like it because not only is it the wrong message to me, it is giving the wrong message, it's not harmonious, it's dominant, but it's also abusive. There isn't a snake on this planet that wants to be grabbed by the back of the head and shown to a camera. There isn't one that says, wow, I'm having a great time. There isn't a crocodile that wants to be mangled. There isn't there's none of them want this exposure. So my approach as a filmmaker has always been, wherever possible, to sit passively and benignly and watch what happens. Which leads to other questions. Should you sit back and watch cheetah babies being eaten by lions? Yes, because that's what happens. Should we jump in? Only if you jump in with everything, in which case why are you there? You can't. You can't jump in with everything. Did that kind of answer some of your question? I mean, it's not comprehensive, because I think every single circumstance has its own merit or not. 99% of what you have seen or will ever see is the real deal. Every now and again there's, a film of an elephant tree, which looks like it's in a desert, but in fact it'll be in a big box. You try filming elephant trees. Try filming a wood mouse. There's hundreds of millions of them in the UK. Apart from a wood mouse coming into your bird feeder, you show me wood mice breeding. You do that with a wild wood mouse. You won't. You won't, because the moment you stick a lens in, it's gone, and eats its babies. Well, I'm not doing that. You'd have it in a big, fat wood mouse home with a special thing when you filmed it. That's how it happened. Is that a lie? I don't think it is. I think it's revealing the magic of the world in a place where the animal is perfectly happy enough to raise a family, to get on with it, and we can understand it a little better. Oxford Scientific Film, great pioneers, Sean and a great gang at Oxford, showing, I don't know if anyone will remember this, Ichneumon wasps laying eggs through the bark of trees. Remember that? I mean, it's really old, remember Martin? Cracking stuff. Heinz Seelman, another great filmmaker. Yeah, cutting away the side of the nest to show the real thing. But he also had tame woodpeckers that would come in and feed. You could see this long tongue covered in battered bark pulling grubs out. Of course he did that in an aviary. Is that a lie? No, it's exactly what woodpeckers do, and it's showing us something that we wouldn't know otherwise. I don't think it's wrong with a website or with the making of or any of these things to say how it was done after. I think that's, if anything, only better. And then you go, wow, look at the ingenuity to achieve this. Or you say, I feel cheated. And if you do, don't watch it. Did that answer? Thank you. What's my favourite animal? You. Apart from people, because people are my favourite animal too, as well as being the scariest. And I think of us as animals, because I think we are. I think we should consider ourselves parts of the world. It depends on the day. It depends on the day.
Wednesday then.
Wednesday. What day are we now? Saturday. Wednesday it was peregrine. Because I've got, for the London Wild Bird Watch, which is something that WWT are hosting at Barnes, we've got, I am going to say it, but it may not be there because you can't tell what the wild world will do. We've got live cameras stationed on peregrine nets right in the heart of London. And I'm recently, bye.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Give my love to Bristol.
Got to get to Bristol to go clubbing.
Yeah, so peregrines, we've got this live camera network that will come back to the theatre, and we're doing a show in April at Barnes. I'll be talking about them. They'll be on a big screen, I hope, if they have nested in the And I was looking at them on our computer system, IT system, and checking what they've been doing over the past 20 days. We've got a recording system. It's so exciting because both they're using the nest site, and the male was coming in. It's a new male, and he's coming in and he's doing fantastic flirting. I mean, I think it's a really groovy move. Have you ever watched peregrines do their thing? They do this kind of bowing thing like this. And so he's doing this thing, calling all the time, and the female comes in and goes. And then if she thinks he's done the cool thing, he kind of gets out of the way and she goes in and scrapes and makes it ready. I mean, this is early. This is when it was all mild. I think right now they're just going. Ask me a week before, it would be otters. Or ask me a week before that, it would be tigers.
What is it today?
Today it's Buick swans.
Oh.
Aren't they gorgeous? Oh, just hearing that sound again. And it's so musical. I'm sure it drives you nuts after a while. I bet Martin gets out and goes, "Shut up! I'm trying to work here!" Actually, geese do that. Yeah. Eventually get to. No, Buick swans. It's magical. So, you know, this critter that's coming from Siberia and then gracing our shores and with their ballet. So pretty, so special. And it's this. I mean, everything about them has this sort of stamp of fidelity, which is a bit anthropomorphic and a bit mawkish. And of course, if you know, there's all sorts of examples of them running off with the neighbours. But hey. There's a lovely sense of fidelity to a place, to a breeding ground, you know, this history where this little tiny, and let's face it, on a global scale, Slimbridge ain't huge, this blob, they come back to, and they want to be here, and they, oh, what a privilege. Well done you know, for keeping it going. Yeah, that was today. And water whales. Oh, water whales. Top bird. You ever seen a water whale end on? Exactly. Because when they're side on, they look like this big dumpy maw, and then they turn end on. Oh, where'd he go?
Water whales.
Another. No, I've got to shut up. I'm being wound and told. Yeah, one more. Who sat their hand up more than one's able to listen?
Apart from the crocodiles, what's the other most difficult animal you have to film?
Apart from crocodiles, the most difficult thing I've ever had to film. David Essex. Actually, right. No, it's not a lie, because I used to film music videos as well. I used to do a few music videos. Actually, David was fine. Demis Roussos was something. I had dinner with Demis Roussos. Like the big name drop, Demis Roussos. Anyway, I had dinner with him. And he was a big fella. He's just not a very tall fella. He's about there. He's a round guy. And he had this plate of prawns, and he's just going, shells on, heads on. And I thought, how you do it? And I'm going. Most difficult critter. I once spent an awfully long time trying to film sparrowhawk catch a blue tit. A long time. Sitting in a hive. I'm going to make it a short story because it's a long one. And it started with me with loads of energy. Okay, when you're in a hive, you can't be distracted. You can't listen to the, well, then it was a Walkman cassette. They didn't have iPods. You can't read a book. You've got to have your ears on so you hear the of an alarm call, and you've got to have your eyes out in case something flickers, so you're there, waiting. And this garden bird table supposedly had a sparrowhawk coming at least 4 or 5 times a day. At least. Day 1. Day 2. 14 days. You can go off blue ticks big time. I want you to die!